What's up, Toy Fam, and welcome back to another episode of our Totally Cool channel. Now, in a previous episode, when we featured the Batmobile gold label release toy, we mentioned that we have some ZD toys from the Iron Man MCU armor collection. So today's episode will be going into that. We'll be featuring that line. We want to change things up. We don't want to stick to Transformers the whole time. Just really show you what we have in our collection and showcase the many beautiful things about these collectibles. Now, on my left, you would see the Mark I Iron Man armor from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, mind you, before there was a Marvel Cinematic Universe, there was a big deal about who would play Tony Stark as Iron Man. But as much as Michael Keaton and his Batman was the key to unlocking the modern day superhero film era, it is arguable that Tony Stark's Iron Man was the gateway to Marvel Studios' success in bringing to life the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So on our left is a Zongdong toy, or the ZD Toys rendition or representation or production of the Mark I, the suit that started it all, the Mark I Iron Man armor. The roughest, toughest, I should say baddest of them all, because they were just made, as Obadiah Stane said, you know, Tony Stark built it in a cave with a box of scraps. We featured the Mark I arc reactor in a previous episode, so we're going to go into the actual armor. Not the actual armor, but the toy showing the actual armor. So we have two versions. This one is the Hall of Armor. It's basically the same figure as this one, but it's got the Hall of Armor case. So we'll put that aside and set that aside for now, and we're going deeper into this one. So join us as we open this box, look at the toy, do a review of the character, and let's take a closer look. Now let's take a closer look at the Zengdong or ZD Toy Marvel Studios licensed Iron Man armor. We're looking at the Mark I, and this is the iconic armor of Tony Stark in the first Iron Man movie that launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's look at the box. It's got the nice hole, and I really like to point your attention to the nice hole in there that shows the arc reactor, I think. It's supposed to be the arc reactor. But aside from the obvious photo of the Mark I, there is also silhouette behind the words Iron Man Mark I, Marvel Studios. Silhouette of kind of like another rendition of the Mark I armor. On the right side, you would see the Mark I with his wrist missiles, which has been a staple of all future Iron Man weaponry, the wrist missile. On the left side, that pivotal moment in the battle you have with the flamethrowers, Mark I on the other side. And on the back, it shows the Mark I front and back and all of the other possible poses you may have with him. It appears that he has blast effects. So let's not prolong the agony and let's open him up. Okay, after we removed the plastic wrapper that was just nice and snug around him, I failed to mention that the box is not your flimsy cardboard box that most toys come in. It's really thick, it's really heavy. In fact, when I was rearranging them on the shelf, one of them fell on my foot and it left a bruise. So that tells you how hard it is. Some of these guys have fallen on the floor, and you see a few dings, but you don't see much of damage. So let's open him up. It's got a nice feel to it. When you open this guy up, it opens two ways, and inside there's a photo, kind of like a mugshot of the Mark One. Okay. Now I'll tip this over a little bit because the figure might fall. So that that is in itself a background. You can if you want to display it, you can put that behind the figure, and it's a nice touch. And this is the actual toy. For most toys, this is really well packaged. You have a clamshell, or blister pack if you would want to call it that. So it's got a protective case in front of it. I mean, it's not going to make the environmentalists happy, but it's got a plastic cover like that. And the figure in itself, we'll get into that later. So that's the figure. And underneath, you have the base. You have the Blast FX, yes, the Blast FX, and a couple of attachments over here. I think this is the flamethrower or the machine behind him. And these are the arms of the base. On the back of this, you can see instructions on how to install the arms, or the stand, the display stand. So, and this one also has a protective plastic on top of it to prevent it from getting loose during transport. And in itself, the box is, like I said, it's a nice way to transport it, but it's also a nice way to keep it. The way this stands like this, it wouldn't really hold up. But if you put it inside the case, and if you have enough room on your shelf, oops, then, you know, I think it would look good. Okay, so now let's get into the toy. Okay, remember Obadiah Stane saying Tony Stark built this with the box of scraps in a cave. We're in a cave with a box of scraps. Technically, he was right, because the Mark I was built using scrap metal, some machine parts that Tony Stark built himself, and some pieces of the Jericho missile. If you would recall, the reason why he was there in the first place was because the group called the Ten Rings abducted him and wanted him to build the Jericho missile for their own terroristic purposes. Now, this was built by Tony Stark, helped with Ho Yinsen, okay? And this has been the template for all Iron Man armors until the last one, until the nanotech ones. We have a lot of Iron Man armor in our inventory, in our collection, coming from ZD Toys and DLX30. So, looking at this toy in detail, it does have touches of that. It gives you the reminder that this was a scrap collection, welded together, built together. Even the battle damage, even the paint. This is not play damage. This is on purpose. This was built. This was done on purpose. Okay. You even have detailed as I'll put a picture somewhere. You even have a detail of a serial number or a stock number coming from some casing or whatnot, and it just shows you how Tony Stark probably built this, with gears showing. It's not the most refined armor, and on the back it says it has the same thing. It has paint damage, it has scratches, it even has Stark Industry on the back. You know, all of this is it shows how the manufacturer designed this with the idea that this is coming from a cave. It's not, there's no Jarvis that helped him. There's nothing that really got him to design this as he would at home when he built the Mark II and all the others. So we're going to be opening up this other plastic case. It's kind of taped really well. because it's got some very small parts. Okay, so there. We're not gonna remove the stand for now, but what I want to show you would be this. This looks like the motor that allows for the whole machinery to run. So it's very basic. I don't know where to put this. Let me see. Okay, if you would look closely, there's an L-shaped peg and one that's a vertical one on the right, a vertical one on the left. And if you look at the back of the figure, there's an L-shaped slot where this would fit. Okay, so it's not complicated. Just have to jimmy him in. Okay, I think this has a waist. No, it doesn't have a waist rotation. It's stuck at the waist. Let's see if we can put him in without any trouble. No trouble at all. It just slots right in. So that's the motor that runs the whole thing. It powers the whole thing, and it just sticks in. Okay, be careful. As you saw, you can easily pop him off. Okay, so look at that on the side, and you can even see what Iron Man or Tony Stark's body inside. Even the leather accent for his undercoat or under whatever. Now, these two blast effects are just amazing because they remind you of that scene. If you would recall that when he said, "My turn." When he came out of that cave and they started shooting at him with everything they got and bullets just bounced off of him. And he was like, "Okay, when are you guys gonna reload?" And then he decided to just blast them, unleash hell. And this is how nice that looks. My turn. When the flames start pouring out of these arms and just, explosions everywhere. Now the hinges are not as tight as I want them to be, but when the shoulders come up a little bit, it gets a little bit tight so you can create that pose. The knee, there's also a knee movement, and there's an ankle rotation. Okay, there's an ankle rotation, and there's a knee bend. The elbows also bend. Let's set this aside. The elbows also bend, but to a very limited degree, because it reminds us of how limited this armor was and how it did not give a lot of freedom of movement, unlike the other succeeding armors. Now the head tilt allows him to rotate his head from right to left and a little bit up and down, again just like the Mark I armor. This is a nice fine piece of plastic. It has that rubber plastic feel to it, not completely plastic, because it's got a nice soft touch. I don't think you even need a stand for this because it stands well on its own, even with the blast effects that make it unbalanced. So that's it for the toy. Now, before we go, just want to throw some trivia in there. This is approximately 6 or 7 inches, almost the same scale as the DLX 3.0. It's not as good. Again, I would have to say this is not as good as the DLX 3.0. What does the Iron Man Mark I armor have? It enhanced Tony Stark's strength. As you can see, he could walk around and punch through doors, metal doors. It enhances durability, bullets bouncing off of him. He was moving around with no worry, with no signs of exhaustion, even though it's a big, heavy metal thing because of all the machinery that goes into it. It does have limited flight. We don't have the blast effect for the flight. And the weapons are, like I mentioned, you have the iconic wrist missile, and on each wrist, and you have the flamethrowers. So that's the Mark I. Now that we've done the character review, we're not going to go too deep into Tony Stark, okay? We're not going to go too deep into Tony Stark. There's a lot to go into if we go into Tony Stark. But the Mark I, 2, and 3, these are the 3 armors that helped in the evolution of Tony Stark from being a war profiteering weapons manufacturer, Wunderkind, to Iron Man, and to a certain extent, Ironmonger. So we'll get into the Tony Stark character development in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we review the toys, because the toys are not just toys. They represent something. They represent a character, and I like to collect these toys because they remind me of a wonderful scene on a movie that just made me go, wow, they did that. They finally did that. It's like from the comic book to the movie screen. So, with that, this toy is, if not, unless DLX30 comes out with their own Mark 1, this toy, for me, although the scale may not be right with the others, because it's supposed to be bigger. It's supposed to be bigger. Almost the size of the Ironmonger, or a little bit smaller. But definitely bigger, should be bigger than the Mark 2 and the Mark 3. This did come out with 2 other versions, the one with the Hall of Armor, which we have, and we're going to review that later and do a comparison. And then there's the other one that came out with the LED lights. We're still trying to look for those. But based on what I have in my hand, in terms of the quality, in terms of the sturdiness of the figure, in terms of the details, the lug nuts, the treads, the gears, it's just, it's a manufacturing wonder how they could do something so detailed and something so small and do it mass produced. It's pretty good. Pretty good. I'd rate it 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Only reason why it's not a 5 is because the scale may be off with the other Iron Man, the future Iron Man armors. In terms of price point, and this is where it takes the cake, I'd give it a 7 out of 5, because you would not believe that this is just almost $20. About 1,100, 1,200 pesos. So it's not expensive. If you're an avid Iron Man collector and you don't have the budget, this is a way to go. In fact, ZD Toys has come out with a lot of new armors. They've come out with a lot of various variants, and I think they're coming out with the whole house party protocol. But that's in the future. For Mark 1, at 1,200, 1,300 pesos, not bad at all. 7 out of 5. In terms of movie integrity to the movie, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. It does. There's the flamethrowers. What more can you ask for? There's the chest piece. Everything here just says, you know, we watched the movie, we looked at it, we knew what you wanted to do, and we came out with a toy. Overall, I think I'd give this a 4.5 out of 5. Again, the only reason why it's not a perfect 5 is because the scale may be off. So that ends our review of the ZD Toys Mark 1 Iron Man armor from the MCU. Please click like and subscribe so that you could see all of our other videos. Hit the bell button so you can be notified when we post new content. And again, thank you for watching. Looking forward to seeing you on future episodes, and happy collecting.